Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Podcast with me, Jen Coffey, as you and I work together to go from where we are now to where we want to be, where we intend to be, where we're meant to be. And while clearly over the past couple of months I'm meant to be in several different places, I am very happy to be where I am right now, back home, at least what will be a temporary home here in Pennsylvania, returned from Switzerland. I came back a few days earlier than my husband so that I could help get the house ready to be on the market and also to help my daughter in her preparations to start her new job, which she did today. So on a personal note, and for a one-person audience only, Gabby, I am so excited for you. You're working at your dream location, doing your dream job, and it's no longer a dream, it's reality. And isn't that what this is all about, right? So, Gabby, I know you're probably nervous and overwhelmed right now, but I am with you in every second of this first day and beyond. And I couldn't be more proud for what it's worth. Now, you and I are going to have a little discussion about my recent trip, but not in the sense that I'm taking you through a slideshow. That would be maybe nice for me, but probably ultimately pretty boring. What I hope to share with you are some learnings that I took away from this trip that I believe really do tie in to the theme of this podcast, getting ourselves to a place of feeling good now, feeling amazing now, to enjoying the journey to where we want to be. And I think it's worth mentioning as we explore and go beyond the first dozen episodes and beyond, that it's not going to be just about manifestation. We run the risk a little bit if we focus too much on this topic in particular of always looking forward, always looking ahead, and missing out on the beauty that is right now. So my hope in this podcast is that we reflect on certain weeks on how we can benefit from where we are right now, how we can juice it for all it has, appreciate it more, be more grateful, yes, but use exercises and learnings that can help us realize that while it's always wonderful to aspire to more or higher or better or wealthier or more love, that when we realize how abundant we are in riches right now, it serves us now and accelerates us to where we want to be. All that to say that while I had an incredible time, I'm so happy to be back. And of course, anytime you come back from a trip, I'm sure you've experienced this too, you have a renewed gratitude and appreciation for the comfort of your own bed and the greetings of your pets and your familiar TV shows and your snacks that you can buy whenever you want. Hopefully, when we come back from these trips, we don't just have this fresh perspective on home, but we have a broadened horizon internally when it comes to how we interact with other people and learning a lot about ourselves as well. I mean, isn't ultimately that why so many people advocate for travel? It's fun and it can be luxurious, but in the end aren't really what we're craving: fresh perspectives and new experiences. So all that to say, instead of me, guiding you through a quote and taking you through some homework for you to do, I just thought it would be fun to share what I learned from Switzerland. And this being from observations that I made of the culture, but also observations that I made about myself. And some learnings about myself that did surprise me. And hopefully will surprise you in a good way too. Now, before I dive in, I do want to kind of announce something that I've been reflecting on. We can add this to the learnings, I suppose, when it comes to the trip in Switzerland. But this announcement has to do with my coaching and the one-on-one sessions that I've been doing with some of you who are listening or watching this podcast. I spent quite a few hours in Switzerland because I had the time really leaning into the coaching that I do on the manifestation side of things, and also with host audition coaching. Several of you probably know that QVC and HSN, they're auditioning new hosts, and I've been coaching some prospective hosts, auditioners, and I've really enjoyed that too. I do believe the deadline has passed, though, for submission on that. There will always be another round, though, so keep that in mind. What I've learned is that I really, really love doing that. I really love coaching. I love sitting with people one-on-one, finding out about their lives, finding out where they want to be in life, what they're craving, and guiding them from that A to that B, and discussing with my clients how they can find a more enriched and fulfilled life now, while also looking to the future. This is quickly becoming something that I personally hunger for more. And so my announcement, it's not with streamers and, anything glamorous. It's just really more of an update, is that I'd like to do more of that. And I'm going to broaden the description of my coaching, because what I found is my experience as a certified wellness coach. I've been certified through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. That certification, my physical training certifications in cycle and yoga, and also my coachings as a manifestation coach, I believe come into play when I work with clients, and we end up talking about a much more broad approach to day-to-day life than just how can I manifest more. So I say this so that you might consider working with me in the future, whether you are craving more from a wellness perspective, how to take better care of yourself. I am not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor, but as it pertains to how you can self-care better, how you can better approach physical fitness in a way that doesn't feel like a burden or a chore, and how you can really nourish and nurture yourself minute by minute throughout the day. That's one thing I love to talk about. I love to talk about optimism and positivity, and how it isn't just quotes and look on the bright side. It goes way deeper than that, and it is work. And of course, manifestation, how we can get you from here I am to, oh my God, life is so abundant and amazing. In other words, if you're looking for a life coach, I'd love to be yours. So send me an email. It's jennifer@jennifercoffey.com. Again, that's jennifer@jennifercoffey.com. You can also go to my website, which is just launched. It's simple, but it's a portal to all things that I do, and that is jennifercoffey.com. Shoot me an email and let's open up the conversation. It isn't something that you necessarily, would want to commit to on a very regular basis right away. We got to make sure we're a fit. But where last month I did just, maybe about a dozen or so sessions, I'd love to explore this more, because it is not just clearly, candidly benefiting the clients that I'm working with. I've received some really great feedback. It's benefiting me too. It makes me feel more whole. So that was a way longer quote unquote announcement and commercial than I intended, but it is what it is. All right, let's get into what I learned in Switzerland. And no, it isn't just that they have really amazing cheese fondue. They do. And it isn't just that they have really amazing chocolate. Oh my gosh, they do. It's more than that. So are you ready? Here we go. Number 1, silence really is golden. Now, this first one, a lot of you are going to go, duh, we love the quiet. And it's really hard to find that. That's true. But what I noticed in Switzerland is that the mundane moments are actually shared in silence. Every train that you get onto is a quiet car. And not because there's signs everywhere. People just are. When you go to restaurants, people are celebrating. And I remember we went to one cocktail bar, and, there was a post-work party. Somebody was retiring, and, everybody's laughing. And that's normal. But when you dine, people are just having their conversations, and they're having it in a very, low tone. And not in the sense, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like, if you have a louder voice, people are looking at you and shunning you, It just seems like everything is a little more quiet. And it made me appreciate my inner thoughts. And something else that I noticed too was when you don't understand the local language, you do a lot more self-reflection. For the most part, everyone around me was speaking German. And many people in Switzerland are bilingual, and they could switch to English almost right away. But the default seemed to be German. And because I was hearing mostly German, I wasn't translating. I wasn't accidentally or purposefully eavesdropping on anybody. And so I was just thinking to myself. And in a way, that's silence, right? So I'm not necessarily saying like we should be more quiet. What I've learned is when it's quiet, I really enjoy the introspection. And so I'm going to seek more of that in my day-to-day life, AKA not necessarily having the television on in the background or music all the time. I don't necessarily need that stimulus personally, because when it is quiet, that's when the really good ideas bubble up. That's when the aha moments, the manifestation revelations, right? The inspiration from higher power, that's when they pop up. Silence can be golden. All right. Number 2 is to notice the extraordinary in the ordinary. And I'm going to expand on this a little bit later because I feel like I have a much deeper and bigger point to make. These people who live in Switzerland, at least in the areas that I explored, and I explored quite a bit, they live amongst the most profoundly beautiful sights of nature, towering mountains, waterfalls, just vast lakes that are beautiful blue-green. And again, to be very clear, I am not saying that this is a country that is superior to ours or to any. It's just a beautiful place. And I wondered frequently, when people are traveling to work in a place like this, like you're driving past the Alps, do you tune it out after a while? I genuinely don't know. And I asked a couple of people that I had an opportunity to engage with, and they said, oh no, I frequently look out the window and go, dang, right? But I don't know. Maybe some people do. What I do know is that I do that in my own hometown. I'm driving to work in Pennsylvania, for example. I would drive night after night and day after day to QVC, and the lush greenery here is gorgeous. There's hills, towns that you drive through that date back to the 1700s. And after a while, you just kind of tune it out, right? How remarkable would it be to do your daily drive and do it with the fresh eyes of a tourist? It doesn't necessarily mean that you're driving past some of the tallest mountain ranges in the world or some of the biggest, most beautiful, deepest lakes. But what is it about our day-to-day drives and our day-to-day lives that we can look at with fresh eyes and go, that's actually really beautiful? You don't need to go to Switzerland to have that kind of, wow, right? That deep awe. Although the folks in Switzerland are very lucky to have that. Notice more, Jen, the extraordinary in the ordinary. Number 3, pick a rest day and stick to it. Okay. Now, those of you who are deep of faith and certain faiths which do suggest strongly a Sabbath and you observe that, I've always respected that. You know, I was raised Catholic, and Sundays were for going to church or going to family dinner. But over time, that just kind of, devolved, and, and then I worked in retail, and then I worked in television, and there really was no such thing as a predictable schedule. So I never really had that regular observed day of quiet and rest. In Switzerland, again, I'm making a sweeping generalization because it isn't the case for every business. They're not mandated to be closed on Sundays, but most of them are, including grocery stores, including convenience stores. There are many, many, many businesses that you would be, in America, shocked to see closed on a Sunday. They're closed on Sundays. And there are strict rules about noise. You don't mow your lawn on Sundays. You don't recycle glass on Sundays, when you're tossing the glass in there and it shatters and it makes loud noises. They want it to be as quiet as possible and as devoid of work as possible. And while I will admit that sometimes that was a little frustrating because on Sundays, Davender and I would be like, right, where are we going to dinner tonight? Oh, I forgot. Our pickings are really slim because it's Sunday, right? Took some getting used to. But I thought, how wonderful is it that for so many centuries, this country has said, this is how we're going to do it. And there are, of course, the faiths that say, this is how we're going to do it. And whether they spend the day in prayerful reflection, worship, with families, I'm going to try to make a more concerted effort to keep a similar kind of schedule, to meditate, to, be at home, to cook a meal that our small family can enjoy, to not necessarily feel like I have to engage in commerce every single day. It can't hurt, right? You save money, you save a little bit of your sanity, you engage in hobbies. It's easier said than done, of course, and I will fail frequently, but I'm going to make a more concerted effort for that. All right, next. Living like a local is very important in places where you aren't the local. So here's what I mean by that. I was in Switzerland for a longer period than I have ever been away from my home in my entire life. And frankly, it had its ups and downs. I mean, after a few weeks in a place, you really start to get homesick, even if you're with your person, which I was. So I learned that as an aside. But also, when you are in a place and you simply can't live like a tourist every day, and really who wants to, right? Going just to restaurants or every day only visiting national landmarks. It's lovely, but after a while you're just not doing that. You run out of places or you run out of money, and I wasn't about to go to an already quite expensive country and deplete my savings. So after a while, it just became, frankly, kind of mundane, right? Going to the grocery, cooking a meal, walking. We're going to talk about that. And started to feel less like I was visiting and more like I lived there. And that's so eye-opening. I'm not saying, hey, if you can, go live for 6 weeks in Switzerland, because I certainly couldn't if I didn't have the opportunity to stay in corporate housing with my husband. But what it taught me was, when I go anywhere, I try to make my annual trip to Colorado, when I go visit, like I used to visit Gabby in Florida and would only be for a few days, can I try more to live like a local? Going to the grocery store, cooking a meal, if my, Airbnb has a kitchen. Can I walk through town without a tourist destination and just wander? I do these things when I visit, but I don't do them enough. And I want to do that more. So, because that's when you leave with this amazing, taste of what a place is really like, and not the facade that they put up for tourists. seems so duh when I say it out loud, but I don't do that enough. And so I taught myself I've got to do that more. All right. Oh, here's a good one. Eating in season is important and really should be celebrated. Now, as a wellness coach, I am already going to recommend to you that you eat the fruits and vegetables that are in season and you go to the farmer's market if you can. But that almost makes it sound like, it's on your to-do list, right? Don't eat that and only eat this. In Switzerland, when you go to the restaurants, there are entire separate menus that celebrate, and I mean the word celebrate, right? With like joyful language and decoration on the menu, an entire menu that celebrates the vegetable that's in season. So when we were there, it was asparagus season. And we laughed because we went to this one restaurant and the seasonal menu in the front at the very top, I had to use my Google Translate to translate it, but it said, asparagus is the king of all vegetables. And I thought, well, that's really grand language for a vegetable, right? How great is that, right? Let us celebrate. And then it got me curious. I'm like, well, what's going to be the royalty next month, right? And they had soups and salads and pastas and, all these different variants on one food, one vegetable. And I thought, wow, that's a great approach, right? Do more of that. Find out what's in season and Google up the fun recipes and make it, almost like this little mini holiday. It's asparagus month and then what's going to be next month, right? And in the winter, it's root vegetable season, right? Instead of, I should be eating more of this, which just puts a real damper on it. How can we celebrate? How can we celebrate the local fish that is harvested if you live in an area where, there are fisheries nearby? And it's got me very hungry, pun intended, to go and seek out recipes for the seasonal vegetables instead of, well, this is all we got right now. It's, no, this is what Mother Nature is bursting with right now. It's the gift that she gave us this month. And how can we let that nourish our bodies? It's just a beautiful approach. All right. The next lesson is a single word, as it should be. Minimalism. Okay. Again, this is something I or any other probably life coach is going to tell you, like go through your house and scale back, purge. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel healthy. It's a shedding process, literally, right? To go through and go, do I really need 400 books? Can I donate some to a library? Can I ask my friends if they're looking for a good read? Should I go through my closet? These clothes date from 10 years ago. I'll never wear them again. Always great. But I had an extreme, at least for me, extreme experience of minimalism in Switzerland because we stayed, as I mentioned, in a corporate apartment. It was very much like a very spare Airbnb. And in the kitchen, there were the slimmest of kitchen utensils, right? It wasn't 4 different spatulas and 2 ladles. And it was 1 spatula, 1 big spoon, and 4 plates instead of 8 from 3 different patterns. And it got me thinking, I would go around practically bragging about being a minimalist. And I came back home and realized I can actually do way better than that. We don't have to scale so far back that we feel like we're depriving ourselves. But here's what I noticed. When you only have 1 spatula, you only have to clean 1. Again and again and again, but you only have to clean 1. When you have 2 sets of sheets instead of 6 sets of sheets for 1 bed, there's so much more room in the closet. Like, it's okay to have a collection or to buy new things if you love them, but get rid of an old one. And not just are you dusting less, washing less, you feel less stressed out. I keep using the spatula as an example, but it's like I needed one, I washed the one I had instead of just grabbing the other one because the first one's dirty. Such a simple thing, but it got me so excited to go back home and go through the bookshelves, go through the kitchen, go through my makeup collection, right? When I traveled, I only had 1 bottle of foundation. one blush, one set of brushes. And I got back home and I was like, why do I have, you accumulate it. So you have this feeling of, ooh, I can't get rid of it, but actually I can. And I won't feel like I'm lacking. So minimalism, it just feels good. All right. Next, we all, I really shouldn't say this about everyone, but I suspect most of us still have bias. And I'm really only going to say most of us once because it makes me uncomfortable to generalize. That itself is a bias. But I know I still do. And I guess I always will. That's something I'm always going to be a work in progress. But when you really sit and think about it, don't we always make assumptions about people when we see them? It's hard not to. It's what many of us have been trained to do. And it's an unlearning. It doesn't shock me at all when I'm walking around in the States and I see people of different ethnicities and, styles of dress and self-expressions of culture. It's lovely. But I found that when I was in Switzerland and I would see a person who, quote unquote, looked like they were from somewhere else, it would always surprise me when I would hear them speaking German. I go, oh, I thought that person, I'm married to a man of Indian descent. And I would see, for example, a person who seemed to be of Indian descent speaking German. And I went, oh, that's cool, right? But it surprised me for a second. And it got me going, wait, why would that surprise me? But a person of Indian descent speaking American English doesn't, right? So I'm not necessarily saying that assumption, is a bad thing. But what does that say about my bias, right? That I expected a person to, what in this case? I don't know, just start speaking with an Indian accent? How could I think that when I'm married to a man who is of Indian descent who has a British accent with a little bit of an American slant to it? It just got me thinking more about how expansive this world is in its beautiful people of so many backgrounds. They all have this story. How did this person come to live here? How did that person come to learn this language that isn't their own or is their own? But it has me more curious to learn about people. And the learning about myself is, Jen, you really can't go around saying that you don't have bias about people because you still do. You always will. But what can you do to broaden your way of thinking about people and just really trying to create that blank slate so that you let them inform you about who they are and not the other way around? Okay, here's an easy one and also kind of a duh. But walking really is the best exercise. Oh my gosh. So where I stayed was a very walkable area. Obviously, that is a challenge in many places, particularly in America, because it's just so, expansive. But when possible, walk. I had to walk quite a bit because we had one car between us and my husband was using it for work, unless I kind of planned it out ahead of time. And so I walked to the grocery, I walked to the lake, I found new paths to explore different places. It was wonderful. Kind of fatiguing at times because I was just going to the grocery to buy, basic stuff. But oh my gosh, I felt so much better. I ate everything that I wanted to eat, and I got back home and, didn't really gain anything. And, it's just amazing. They say it to us all the time. And anything you read about exercise will tell you that walking is the way to either start, supplement, or in many cases, if it's the only thing you do, it's great exercise. And it is so true. and it costs nothing. And it isn't always accessible, right? The weather's really crappy or it's freezing cold. Like, okay, so, do what you love. But oh my goodness, if you're looking for something just to make yourself feel better and it's a 20-minute walk, I knew it already, but that reminder was really solid because I fall into a pattern of, I do my yoga, I do my spin, occasionally I do weights. That's my regimen, right? And then you realize your body does kind of get into not a funk, but kind of a plateau with that. And how can you shake it up a little bit? And sometimes all it takes is walking. That's all it takes. Okay. Next learning. I learned that you can visit places that are on paper more beautiful than your happy place. And it does not affect how beautiful you perceive your happy place to be. If you have followed me for anything longer than a year, you may know that on a mostly annual basis, with a few exceptions, I have visited the same place in Colorado for decades. It is a small town called Ouray, Ouray. And even when I tell people about it, I cringe a little bit because I'm afraid that it'll become overwhelmed with tourists. Because to me, it's still like my little secret place. But it's not far from Telluride, which is very popular for skiing. Ouray is pretty much a hiker's town, and it's an old mining town. And as far as commerce goes, it's not much more. And it is my paradise. It is my happy place. I have a soul connection to that place that I have to believe is cosmic. It maybe is a place that I lived in a past life. I don't know. But when I go there, even though I am generally a happy woman, I am the happiest I feel I can possibly be when I'm in Ouray. And it is a beautiful, beautiful mountain town. They call it the Switzerland of America. And I always was just a little bit afraid to visit places that had what people would describe as more beautiful mountains, right? Oh, you should go to the Alps if you love Ouray. You should go, they would list all kinds of places. If you love mountains, you should go to XYZ. And I would respond with, well, I love mountains, but I love Ouray. Like, what I love about it is just the way it makes me feel. So being in Switzerland kind of made me face that apprehension, right? Well, if I go there and the mountains are that breathtaking, will it make Ouray lose a little bit of its magic? And I can tell you with absolute confidence, it absolutely won't affect that at all. And I think it must be similar to the way a parent feels about their children, that they would not tell you that they have a favorite, but that the love, the strong love that they have is unique and different for each of their children. So I have confirmed that I absolutely love the mountains because having gone to, the Alps, both for my wedding and for Switzerland, I'm in awe of it. It just makes you reflect on how ridiculous this earth is in its grandeur and its beauty. But I don't have the soul connection to it like I have for Ouray. And that brought me peace, that this deep love that I have for that particular location on this earth is truly that. It is deep. It goes deeper than the superficial. And so I get to continue to believe that I lived a past life there. And now I can't wait to go back more than ever. So yes, you can visit the entire world, I think. And your happy place, it might be somewhere very simple, again, on paper, right? Your hometown, or a lake that you kind of feel like you are the only one who ever discovered it, right? And that love that you have for that place can be deeper more profound than any of the most breathtaking visual places in the world. Before I share with you the last learning that I took from Switzerland, I'm going to throw in kind of a bonus one because technically I said it was 10, but I feel like this one's important. And it isn't necessarily something that Switzerland itself taught me, but that this exercise taught me. This learning is that I should be asking myself more what I learned from every place that I've visited. And I've been very blessed to have visited some unique, exotic, out of the way places and some very, top 10 touristy places. And I go and I experience it and I soak it up, and then I come home and I'm like eager to do the next one. I'll always have that craving, I think. But being in Switzerland for so long and then prompting myself to create a podcast around what I learned has made me realize I should be asking myself that when I get back from any trip. What did I learn when I came back from my group trip to Italy? What did I learn when I came back from hiking excursions in Iceland? What did I learn after each of the 20, 25 plus visits that I've had to Uray? What do different towns and communities and cultures and foods and creations of Mother Nature and traditions, what did I take away from it other than pictures, other than fun memories, the highlights, right? What are some of the more under the surface revelations that I can take away from these places? I should ask myself that every time to really give appropriate thanks to the universe for bringing me to that place, and to really be able to say that I have broadened my horizons by going there. In order to really do that, you got to come away with more than just pictures. And so I'm so grateful for this podcast, frankly, because it, as I'm like, what am I going to talk about when I come back from Switzerland? I thought I should talk about what it taught me. And I realize, God willing, I have many more opportunities to go to other places. Therefore, God willing, I have many more opportunities to learn. And so I'm going to start asking myself that more. What can I take away from every place that I visited? All right. My last learning, I'm going to admittedly steal straight from social media. Wouldn't be the first time. Because, for all of its, downsides, social media can actually be a beautiful place if you, kind of curate your feed so that it's a little bit healthier than it is when it's just, open to everything. And I follow a lot of really great positive accounts. And this quote or this meme or whatever you want to call it has kind of gone viral. So I don't know from which account it originated. But when I saw it online, I think because I must have been in a position where I really needed this thought, it really cut me to the core in a good way. And I have been saying it out loud over and over again throughout the day since I first saw it. And the video in which I saw it, it was two young men, and they were looking at a beautiful horizon. And one of them turns to the other and goes, I almost forgot. And the second guy goes, forgot what? And the first one goes, this is the whole point. And the second guy goes, you're right. This is the whole point. And I watched it over and over again. It's so simple. But when you put it into the context of your own life, you go, wait, that beautiful sunset, the cat that's purring in my lap, the Alps in Switzerland, and looking at them, biting into cheese fondue, biting into Swiss chocolate, hearing a beautiful accent that you rarely hear, watching the sunset thousands of miles from where you were born, hearing children laugh and play in a different language, putting your hand into water that 100 years ago would have been almost impossible for you to do because you simply couldn't travel that far. Transportation didn't exist like that. Savoring a special moment that costs nothing but takes your breath away and blows your mind. That's the meaning of life. And I don't say that lightly. This is one of those viral phrases that's going to stick with me forever. And I think the reason that it got me to the core is because it is a core truth that we know in our bones, but we don't really verbalize it, right? When you hold close to you a person that means to you, their life means more to you than your own life. When you hold that person close to you, this is the whole point. I hope one person hears that and goes, like I did. And when I saw it, I was in Switzerland, right? And so I was, and to be clear, I spent every day very grateful that I was there, but we all take things for granted. And when I saw that on my phone, I just looked out the window. You could see mountains from everywhere in Switzerland, right? But I turned and I looked and I went, this is the whole point. And I hear that in my mind multiple times throughout the day. So I'm so glad that I had that serendipitous moment of being somewhere and also hearing those words and it all just kind of clicking. But now I'm home, and when Madame Mim is purring in my lap, I think this is the whole point. It takes you out of that hamster wheel of what's next, what's the next trip? What's the next lunch date that I have with a friend? What's the next movie I'm going to go see? Every little thing, we're always looking for the next. And it's what perpetuates life. There's nothing wrong with that. I do this whole podcast about manifesting the next. But the key, a big, big key that unlocks manifestation is being present and realizing that your gratitude and joy and appreciation of the present, no matter how on paper mundane it may be, that is the whole point. I think that's why God put us here. So those are my learnings from Switzerland. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you've learned in places that you've visited and suggestions on more places to go. My closing plug will be that hopefully before the next podcast comes out, if not definitely by the one after that, I will have announced where my next group trip will be, where you and I and a dozen or so other individuals can become friends and learn our own lessons in an amazing place together. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to be one of the first to know, sign up for my newsletter at jennifercoffey.com. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'll see you next week.